Welcome back. I have some incredible news for you. It's right over there on the screen. Sorry, that way. And last night I cracked 1300 rapid for the first time. There's the game page as it's shown after you win, where it just shows I gained 8 points for this win and went up from 1294 to 1302. So I'm going to take you through parts of this game, mostly the ending, which was my strong point. And yeah, it's great. All right, here we are with the opening position. And I'm going to just click through most of this because I think most of this was standard. And I will say that there's a slight difference. That surprised me, by the way. But anyway, there's a slight difference between the game review on the app and the game review on the browser. Right after the game, which I played on my tablet in the app, I ran the game review and it said I didn't have a mistake until the end game, which I was pretty impressed. Just a couple of inaccuracies throughout the opening and middle game, and then my only mistake was in the end game. But when I ran the review or the game analysis here on the browser this morning, it said I had a couple of inaccuracies. I mean, I had at least one mistake here in the opening, just as we transition into the middle game. But again, most of this is not that unstandard. I think it counted that as an inaccuracy, but it wasn't that bad. It allows me to take that pawn. Now that's one that was counted as inaccurate on both the app and the browser. It says I should have done something else. Oh, I should have. Yeah, it wanted me to push e6 here, but that would have brought up an entirely new set of complications that I wasn't really ready for. I just know that now that my e-pawn is out of the way of this bishop, I'm going to take that pawn. And I still have a noticeable advantage. Let's put the engine up there and keep moving. My opponent defended their knight, which is fine. It allows me time to castle. Defended their knight again, which I don't think that was that good because it does block this square for the knight, but maybe that's fine. Maybe they plan to move the knight here and bring the queen out this way. Although normally when black brings the queen out to b6, this rook is in here defending this pawn. So in this case, it doesn't do nearly as much good, I don't think, to bring the queen to those squares. My king is gone, so it's not a check if they go to a5. And again, my rook has moved over, so they're not threatening my b-pawn. So I'm not sure what that was about other than an extra defense of the knight, which doesn't need defending because I don't have any pawns that can attack it. But anyway, I decided to bait this pawn forward, is what I was kind of hoping they would do. Or if they blocked with the bishop, I would take it. And they did block with the bishop. And even though Stockfish says I should just bring my bishop now, I decided to go ahead and trade off the dark squared bishops. They've already traded off their light squared bishop for my knight down here. So I would have the only bishop left on the board. And so I did that. That was counted as an inaccuracy. But I still have a slight advantage. Blocked the queen from possibly coming down here. Again, I don't think there's anything outstanding about most of these moves. That I did on the spur of the moment, and that was counted as a mistake here in the browser. Let's see what it says I should have done. It says I should have taken control of the semi-open file here with my rook, which honestly was something that I had considered. But I also thought, if I take this and they take back with that c-pawn, then it's going to be a completely open file when I move my rook over. But yeah, this was counted as inaccurate in the app, but a mistake here in the browser. And the idea, I'm not sure what they had, because they took with the pawn I intended to, and then my best move is to move this. Well, it's changed its mind. Now it thinks I should pull my queen up here, I guess going after this undefended pawn. I decided to play b4 here, which turns out to be, again, inaccurate in the app and a mistake here in the browser. My idea was that if they took, I can take back and offer a queen trade immediately. Their queen is undefended. Mine would be defended. If they traded off right there, I would still have an opportunity to take control of the open file. But I also thought that they probably wouldn't take for that reason. I thought they would probably push forward, and they did, which turned out to not be their best move. And then I took control of the completely open file. Now I don't have that much of an advantage, but I was feeling pretty confident here. They have several good moves here, the best of which I think is to bring their knight out this way, which would connect their rooks, and I guess defend against me putting a rook here. Not sure exactly what the point of that would be, other than to connect the rooks and get the knight off of here. I guess they saw the same thing and they put that there, which I didn't know, of course, during the game if it was a mistake or not, but I'm feeling very confident here. My pawn and my knight are guarding all the possible squares that this queen could use to come in this way. So my queen doesn't even need to be guarding this square. My rook, as I said, is controlling the open file, and it's protected by both of these pieces. I think probably here the only weakness that I really have are these two pawns, which they can't really get to right now. They can get to this pawn more easily, but it's going to take a lot of maneuvering by their knight to get it right here. Like now that they've moved it there, they're going to have to actually, if they wanted to get to that pawn, they would have had to have gone back this way and then back this way. But that pawn, again, it's defended twice by two of my pieces. So I didn't feel like I had a lot of weaknesses, and I felt pretty good going into the end game that soon developed. Now here I decided to double my rooks on this file. And if their knight hadn't moved where it did or to here, I was thinking of maybe putting a rook right there on c5 and bringing this rook over. But, wow, I just looked, Stockfish is saying it would have been even better to go all the way down. I didn't know about that because I thought they might challenge it with the knight or something. But, again, the ideas are basically the same. And so I did that. My opponent immediately challenged the rook. I brought mine over. Again, it wasn't my best move, but I was feeling confident here. I felt like I had better control of this entry point, for one thing. And I also have been studying a lot of in-game, so I felt fairly confident here. Now, their best move is to block, is to plug this hole right now. Because both of these pawns would guard the rook sitting right there. And if I traded a rook for it, then they could plug the hole with a pawn. Probably that one. Probably the c-pawn. I'm not sure exactly. But they decided to just go ahead and take, which turned out to not be good for them. That was counted as a mistake for them, both in the app and in the browser, because here, obviously, I'm going to take back, and this is a defended rook, again, controlling the only completely open file. And now they don't have anything controlling c8, so they can't even bring this rook over to challenge. I think what they're supposed to do here is to put their queen back to one of those two squares, I suppose, guarding this infiltration point. My idea is fairly simple. Again, my knight and my pawn continue to guard the squares on this diagonal in case the queen tried to go that way. I also felt like if they pushed this pawn, trying to attack here, that pawn is protected two ways. And so my idea was to move my queen over and get my rook down there. I was willing to trade off for the rook. I thought I was in a pretty good position here. They did not play one of their better moves, and that just helped me with my plan. And, of course, I had no idea that it was my best move, but I decided to go this way instead of just behind the rook here. I felt that on c1, it was continuing to defend this pawn as well as continuing to defend one of the squares on that diagonal, besides the main point of getting behind my rook. So that's what I did. I'm prepared, obviously, to trade off a rook for a knight here. And they played their best move, which was to get it out of the way. And I thought, right here, I can get my queen in and behind these pawns. And the way that I can do that is by popping my rook back to the back rank. That turned out to not be best. Stockfish wants me to throw one of these pawns forward, I guess, and start breaking open here since they're defending over on the queen side against this infiltration. It says go ahead and go for it this way. Alternatively, plug this hole with the rook And maybe if they trade off for it at some point, you'll get a passed pawn. I just went for broke, and that turned out to be not that bad. It was one of those that has a pale green check mark on the game review that says good. So it's not a mistake or an inaccuracy. And at this point, they really have no choice but to take. I mean, they have choices, but that's their best move. They do anything else. If they had done anything else, I was going to take this rook. One thing I thought they might try to do was to, you know what? I think here I didn't think. Here I just assumed they would take the rook, and they did. And that turns out to be a problem because, again, I've infiltrated now. And again, my pawn and knight are guarding these squares. The queen has to stay here to guard this knight. They did the right thing here by adding an extra layer of protection to the knight. But again, now I'm behind there. And I know that one of the most important things in endgames, even though for some reason it hasn't been discussed in the endgame books that I'm studying right now, is getting a passed pawn. If neither you or your opponent has a passed pawn, but you have a way of creating one, it turns out to work wonders in most positions, especially everything else being equal. Because, I mean, a passed pawn is how you get a whole nother piece, right? And I saw immediately, because they moved their king over, how to get a passed pawn. Stockfish is saying that's my best move. So I'm pretty proud of that, because they're not going to be able to move their queen at that point once I've pinned it to the king. And they're either going to have to let me take them down there, which might have been their better idea. But if they let me take them here, I've got a passed pawn. And so that's what I did. I'm surprised that it actually says that's their best move, because it gives me the passed pawn. And I almost snap took with my b pawn, but then I realized I couldn't get to these fast enough, and my opponent could create a passed pawn. If I take with this b pawn, yes, I have a passed pawn and it's temporarily protected, but then they can push this forward, and if I take it, this one's only 3 steps from promotion. I wasn't sure in the heat of the moment if I could get there, or how quickly I could get there with the knight. I mean, it looks like I would have had time to block the promotion square, but I know my king's way over here. So I decided to take with the d pawn, because my knight guards the advancement square of their d pawn. And again, that turns out to be my only move that's not a mistake or a blunder. And right here, I thought I was like maybe +3 or +4 evaluating the position on the board, because there's not much they can do. And that passed pawn turned out to be the advantage that I needed. I think my opponent wasn't as well versed in endgames as me, maybe, even though they probably should be. I checked their profile. They've played something like 3,000 games in the past 2 or 3 years. 3,000 rapid games. I didn't even check their other stats. And I know here I need to bring my king. I don't need to do anything with the kingside pawns, really, until they start advancing their kingside pawns, or until I need a time saver. If I get into a position where I don't have that good of a move, then I can maybe edge a pawn forward to make it the opponent's move. So I decided to save those pawn moves and bring my king. My opponent starts bringing their king. And we march toward the middle. Again, I'm not worried about this pawn advancing right now, because my knight guards that square. And when it's appropriate, I'm going to go ahead and put my knight in front of it. But first I wanted to get my king up there. I wasn't worried here. I thought if they took, I would take with my pawn. With my knight. But another option, of course, is, as I said, I wanted to put my knight over here to block this pawn. And then, of course, I could defend my e pawn with the f pawn. But I needed to have this protected at the moment. So I continued bringing my king, which turns out to be the best move. They took that pawn, so I took back with my knight. Only move that's not a blunder. And that, of course, is the reason I left the knight there. But now my king is blockading this pawn. And I think this is one of the reasons that Stockfish is giving me advantage. We're still completely exactly even on material. One difference is that it's not entirely symmetrical. They now have a passed pawn in the center. And I have a passed pawn here. Those two on the left are locked up. But over here, Again, I think these pawns are going to be fully able to stop those, and I'm going to be able to stop their middle pawns with this. The only thing that I need to worry about is trying to figure out a way to advance my c-pawn while taking care of any other infiltrations that they try to make. Here, I assume they're going to come after my knight with the king, and that is what they did, and that was their best move. But now I can protect that square with the f-pawn. Here it's saying I should have went ahead and protected with the king, but the f-pawn, f4 is one of the moves listed, and that that works out okay. And now I've got my king up there, so I'm back to +2. Again, I have no idea what the evaluation is during the game, but I know what my goal is, and I know what my opponent's goal is. There's not much that they can do. Here it says I should have put my knight back behind. I don't know about that. What I was looking at was guarding the square in front of my c-pawn for a potential advance here in just a little bit. And oh wow, it says I should just go ahead and advance now. Look at that. c6 is my best move. Okay, well, maybe I should have. I did not. I went ahead and played another waiting move here, which turned out to be... Oh, Stockfish, after thinking for a little bit, says it's not that bad. I like that. That makes me feel good. When you play the move and the evaluation drops because Stockfish thinks it's bad, but then it climbs back up. It's still +4. +4.5 now. And I made that move on the spur of the moment. Now notice here on our clocks we've used half our time, just slightly over half our time, and we're exactly even on time. We've both used just over 5 minutes in a 10-minute rapid game. So a lot of times, if in a no increment rapid game, I get nervous near the end because I know that every second that I think takes a second away from a later move. But here I felt comfortable with this amount of time. I'm not sure what that was about because I think my opponent was hoping to go here to get this pawn, but they can't. They can't go there. My knight's guarding that spot. And here says I should push the c-pawn, which I did. I'm 2 squares from promotion. My knight is protecting it. They don't have anywhere else to go. My king is guarding this spot. The pawn is guarding that. Pawn is guarding these two. And my knight's hitting that hole that their king can't get into. So they went back with their king. And now we're at +8. I went in there with my king. I knew that this could result in a check over here. Or the pawn pushing. But to be honest, I was kind of... if they had checked over there, I was just going to go back. Because I didn't want to go over there to go after the knight. Because then I wasn't sure if I could catch this pawn. Even though I can. But I was kind of hoping they would try to run with this one before I got far enough away. You see what I'm saying? If they check and I went here, then they could run with that pawn. And I'd be forced to either blockade it or wait to capture it with the knight. Maybe. I don't know. But I hoped it would move forward. And it did. And it says I should just let it go. It says I should just let it go. It says I should go in here to challenge their knight. Their knight would go up here to check me, and then I would take this pawn while my knight is still guarding that square. Okay, well, I missed that, but I took that pawn. This was on the app counted as my first mistake of the game in the app. Now on the browser, this was counted as, I think, my second mistake. But anyway, it's not bad because I still have this. And in fact, now that Stockfish has run for a little bit, it turned out to not be the mistake. Because the evaluation dropped down to 3 or 4 when it first made the move. But now you saw it climb back up to +7. So not that bad. I have an advantage here, really. I have to do something pretty thoughtless, like give away my knight for a pawn or something in order to blunder this away. That wasn't bad. It prevents me from going back in there to help march this pawn down. Now, Stockfish wants me to check in here. I didn't want to do that because I wanted to keep guarding the pawn. So I made another waiting move to see what they would do because they're kind of locked in their position. And again, you saw the evaluation drop, but then it slowly starts to climb back up. And it only stays at +4 if black makes a very specific move, but they didn't. They made a waiting move also. So I can come back, They went back. Maybe at this point they were hoping for a draw. You notice our time is still almost identical. Here I did do the check, and they went forward instead of back. So now I can challenge the knight directly. If they take me, I take back, and I'm just gonna promote. So they ran away to one of the only couple of squares they could run away to. It wants me to go knight e4. Okay. Not sure exactly what would have been great about that. I think that would have allowed their king in here to come get that pawn. But what I wanted was to get this knight out of the way so I could now push my king through there. So I did move my knight, also knowing that this would be a check if I needed it. And they went back there to keep me from coming through this way. So I did the check, which forces them to move. And then I get that b pawn. Now I have 2 passed pawns, plus 11. So this worked out very nicely for me. There's not much that they can do, and of course they tried. Now you notice their time is starting to get a little bit less than mine. They tried to create a passed pawn of their own. I'm supposed to... Oh, at first it said I'm supposed to ignore that and check here. But I made the right move, even though it took Stockfish a little bit to see it. It took me 8 seconds to see it, so I'm not saying I'm smarter than Stockfish. Stockfish found it in about 2 seconds. I thought about it. I thought about the check, but I thought, you know what? Why not just take the pawn and then let them take mine? Which they did. And the computer sees that I'm going to win this game. It hasn't found a mate yet, but it's getting close. So now I've got that other pawn out of the way. I've 3 connected passed pawns. Look at that. Now my opponent's time is dropping faster. They're at 35 seconds. I'm just chopping off pieces. I have more than a minute left, and they're plus 35. So their time drops. I got the check. They have to go someplace. I advance. Now they're at 14 seconds. They made another move, but I'm not worried about this. What they're going to have to make a couple of more moves just to get that pawn. Then they're going to have to get out of the way. There's no chance of them advancing their h-pawn at this point. And now Stockfish has found a mating sequence, and they ran out of time here. So again, thank you for sticking with me. This analysis storytelling turned out to be a little longer than I had intended. But I'm just proud of this game. I'm proud of how, even though I made some inaccuracies or mistakes, depending on which analysis you trust, I didn't ever lose the advantage out of the opening. There was one point in which it came back to right around equality. It may have even gone back to -6 or something. But I never was in a position where anyone would seriously call me losing. And once it got near the end game and I saw how to trade off and simplify those pieces and force a passed pawn, I became very confident. I started moving more quickly. And even though my opponent used all their time and I used almost all my time, which meant this was a 19-minute game, I'm just pretty proud of it, pretty happy. I'm under no illusion that I'm going to stay above 1,300 permanently. I know I might lose the next game and drop back down. That's fine, but I know I've cracked it. And, of course, my next goal is to stay above there as long as possible, and now I'm aiming for 1,400. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.